Germany's sex industry is this massive, multi-billion-euro business. But what's so different about it is that it's not all hidden in the shadows. Instead, it's actually treated as a legal profession, one that's taxed, regulated, and, at least in theory, protected. But how does a system like that really work on the ground? And does it end up solving more problems than it creates? Well, let's break it down.
And this really gets to the heart of it, right? It's the fundamental question that divides countries all over the world. Is sex work a crime that should be punished, or is it a form of labor that should be regulated? Germany made a very decisive choice, and its answer has created one of the most liberal and, frankly, most controversial legal frameworks on the planet. Okay, so this whole system didn't just appear overnight. Germany's approach today is really built on two key laws, and they mark a pretty dramatic shift in legal thinking. So let's take a look at how this all evolved.
The first big step happened back in 2002 with the Prostitution Act, but then it took another 15 years for the second major piece of the puzzle, the Prostitute Protection Act of 2017, to fall into place. Now, on the surface, their names sound kind of similar, but their goals, they are worlds apart. And this slide right here shows a huge philosophical shift. That 2002 law was really all about decriminalization, basically just making it legal. It meant sex workers could have actual enforceable contracts and pay into social insurance for things like healthcare and pensions. But by 2017, the thinking had totally changed. The goal wasn't just legality anymore, it was active protection, with mandatory registration and health checks designed specifically to fight exploitation.
So what does all this regulation actually look like day to day? Well, that 2017 law isn't just a suggestion, it's a strict, mandatory system with very clear steps that every legal sex worker has to follow.
And the first rule is absolute. You have to be 18, period. There are zero exceptions. Any involvement of a minor is a serious crime, and the law is designed to draw a very hard line against exploitation.
So, the legal process is a clear three-step path. It all starts with registering with the local authorities. After that, workers have to attend a mandatory health consultation. And this isn't just a checkup, it's really about providing information on rights and available services. It's only after completing both of those steps that they get the official permit they need to work legally. So that's the law on paper. But what does this industry actually look like in practice? The reality is a really diverse and complex market that can vary hugely from one city to the next. Economically, the market covers a massive spectrum. At one end, you've got street or window work, where prices can be just tens of euros. In the middle, an hour in a brothel or a club might cost you somewhere between 80 and 200 euros. And then at the high end, individual escorts can charge several hundred euros, which reflects a completely different part of the market.
And the workforce itself is incredibly varied. The majority are in their 20s and 30s, but it's really not uncommon to find workers over 40. A huge percentage are migrants, coming from both other EU countries and non-EU countries. And there's no single way of working. Some are full-time employees in big clubs, while others are completely independent, traveling between different cities to find clients. Unsurprisingly, the industry is pretty clustered in Germany's biggest cities. Hamburg's Reeperbahn is legendary, of course, and Berlin's scene is just massive and incredibly diverse. But you'll also find major hubs in places like Frankfurt, Cologne, and Munich. Basically, wherever you find a critical mass of people and tourism. But, and this is a big but, a regulated system is definitely not a perfect system. In fact, the very act of trying to regulate everything has created brand new problems, without necessarily solving some of the oldest ones. And this brings us right to the central conflict of the German model. It's this constant tug of war between safety and privacy. On the one hand, mandatory registration makes workers visible to the authorities, which is supposed to protect them from exploitation. But on the other hand, it creates an official government record of their work, and that raises huge fears about stigma, social backlash, or even physical danger if that private data were ever to get leaked. And the privacy issue is really just one piece of it. A massive challenge is the number of workers who just stay unregistered, operating in a kind of shadow economy outside of the law's protections. Then there's Germany's federal system, which creates this messy patchwork of different rules and fees depending on which state you're in. And while the law was absolutely designed to combat human trafficking, actually enforcing that on the ground remains a huge, huge struggle. So all of this really points to the core takeaway when you look at the German model. There's this massive gap between the clean, simple ideals of the law and the messy reality of actually putting it into practice. Ultimately, the German system is trying to do something noble. It's designed to protect human rights and public health. But in practice, its success is hotly debated. When you have inconsistent enforcement, major privacy risks, and a large shadow economy operating completely outside the rules, the ambitious goals of the law often fall way short of reality. And this leaves us with a really fundamental question, doesn't it? For an issue as complex and as human as sex work, can a neat legal framework ever truly match the messy reality on the ground? Germany's experiment is still ongoing, and it offers no easy answers, only a fascinating and deeply complicated look at what happens when you try.